Okay, so I'd like to call the meeting of August 30th, 2022 to order. Notice of this meeting was given by sending sufficient notice herewith to the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, and the Jersey Journal, and by filing advance written notice of the meeting with the clerk and/or administrator of each member, and posting a copy of the meeting notice on the public bulletin board of all members. I direct the secretary to enter into the minutes of this meeting the advance written notice of this meeting and this statement. Can I get a roll call, please?
Michael Sika,
Here.
James Brady, Mike Capiganco, Scott Olson. Jeanette Larson,
Here.
Paul Clark,
Here.
Harry Delgado,
Here.
Michael Julis,
Here.
Brandon Goldberg,
Here.
Joseph Senga,
Here.
Mayor Heck,
Here.
William Kurtz, Glenn Kurtz, Leon Stokel,
Here.
Scott Recant,
Here.
Joe Monzo,
Here.
Donna Setzer, James Gotay,
Here.
Louis Gotay, Sean Kelly, Dominic Spinelli,
Present.
Robin Ratsiopi, Patty Fahey,
Here.
David Grubb,
Here.
Joe Rubash,
Here.
Robert Landolfi,
Here.
Diana Sherman,
I believe Sean Walsh is here for Diane's stead.
Diane Walsh.
Sean Walsh.
Sean Walsh.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hold on, Chair, I'm letting somebody in. I don't know if it's Mike Capianco or not.
Yeah, it's Richard Janner on New Brunswick, Board of Ed.
Okay,
Karen Beatty is here from Quallingsford, Donna Setzer.
who was that?
Karen Beatty for Donna Setzer.
Karen Beatty, okay.
Thank you.
Chair, for the record, also on the call meeting today is Ron Gordon, Melissa Pearlstein, Anthony Cancro, Craig Joseph, John Palcato, P. Cosarelli, I believe, Kimberly Humphrey, and Glenn Cullen. Did I miss anyone?
Janero, can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, Neil Murata, North Bergen Parking Authority. Neil Murata, North Bergen Parking Authority as well.
Thank you. And Charlie Cradable.
Okay. Everyone's accounted for. Moving forward, so there were no minutes that were included with this packet. They'll be with the September meeting, Glenn. We could expect those then?
Correct. I'll send them out prior to the September meeting.
Okay. Administrators report.
Yes. Claims as of August 31st. Total claims from 2017 to 2021. 33,446,132 against the budget of 27,201,564, and excess premiums of 22,018,485. I do not have a bank report. I was trying to get my claim against Camp Lejeune settled, so squared away anyway. So thank you very much. I'll get it out to you later today or early tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Managed care. Filings.
Thank you. This is Karen Beatty. The savings and network penetration summary report shows that in July, 175 bills were processed. 164 of those, or 94%, were in network. Total billed charges, $415,490.17, resulting in a savings of 69%, or $288,682.78 in savings. 13 new claims were reported. Of those, 11 required treatment and 2 will report only claims. And unless anyone has any questions on any of the other reports submitted, that is all there is to report today.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, moving on to safety and loss control. Mr. Gote?
Yes, Chair, that was sent out in the packets, loss data for the month of July and August. All new claims reported by member by line of coverage, as well as claims we have since closed off the system and claims we are currently pursuing third-party recoveries on. Recoveries to date of $8,338,275 on a general claim system and $3,242,745 on the comp system. Mr. Gote is here as well to give a brief update with respects to the right to know surveys.
Good afternoon. All the right to know surveys were submitted to the Department of Health in a timely fashion. All the books have been delivered to the clients, to the JIF clients, with the exception of New Brunswick Parking Authority. We're in the process of trying to schedule a time that is convenient for them to have us deliver the data books back to the authority. With that, we would complete the right to know services. Thank you. That is all, unless someone has a question.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions regarding safety and loss control? Okay, moving on to the finance report. Mr. Monzo.
Thank you, Chair. Glenn sent around my finance report last night. I want to call attention to the assessments receivable page. Excuse me, with respect to the 22 regular assessments, we still have some money still to collect, the majority of which is the second half payment from the New Brunswick Parking Authority. We're still waiting on collections for the special assessments for 2021. And you'll see the amounts by town, and there's some comments there. And then there are some outstanding receivables for the 0102 deficit. Neither one of those last two are included in the deficit resolution you're going to speak about later. A couple other things I wanted to mention, finance related. The municipal audit for 2021, which is being done by Holman Frenier, has been started. I delivered all of the materials that I have for 2021 to the auditor's office in Lakewood maybe 3 weeks ago. We've had a group conversation with myself and Glenn and the auditor about the timeline. They are looking to get some information from the prior auditor, Samuel Klein, in order to facilitate the 2021 audit. We're in the process of closing the two bank accounts at TD Bank for general claims and workers' compensation since we switched over to Lakeland. I wanted to give the two banks time for some of the outstanding checks to clear before we close the accounts. So I've been working with Tom Kurtz for those outstanding checks that we're still showing as outstanding, whether they still have a viability to be outstanding, whether they need to be replaced. So we'll be closing those two accounts sometime in the month of September, moving that money over either to the Amboy account or to the Lakeland accounts as appropriate. And then the last thing, I had promised last month that we were going to be working on a revised budget. The original budget that was adopted by the board earlier this year included, members who are no longer part of the JIF. So as we move forward, the not only is the assessment, number gone down, obviously, but we needed to rework some of the expense numbers. So Glenn and I have been working on that. I sent him the revised copy that I was working on up till today. He sent that out to you as advisory only. It's not to be discussed today. It's just for you to look at, get back to Glenn and I with questions. And then depending on those questions and the resolution of those questions, if there are any, we will bring a resolution to you at the September meeting to basically revise the budget downward based on the current membership and the current expected expense level. And that's my report, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the finance report? Okay, so then we'll move on to old business.
Yes, Chair, before the board today, as you're aware, last month, we presented a resolution addressing the JIF's deficit from fund years 2021 to 2020. As advertised after that meeting and notice provided to all current and former members. The deficit is being considered today for a hearing with respects to fund years 2001 through 2020, addressing each fund year by deficit with respects to dealing with the JIF's position. As you're aware, spreadsheets that were used in determining the fund position are broken down by fund year, by line of coverage, by particular member. Each fund year stands on its own based on its membership in that fund year, and the calculations were performed by a percentage of member contributions by the fund year by line of coverage. With respects to the introduction of the supplemental assessment plan, the total deficit that was identified of approximately 27 million included claims which were reported and reserved, case reserves of 12,730,104. And we have a open IBNR of 21,376,670. These numbers were developed by the fund auditor, fund actuary, and as well as a recent review done by the Department of Insurance and Banking. As such, the bylaws of the fund and in cooperation with and support of the Department of Insurance and Banking and DCA and the bylaws of the fund, we're looking for a resolution today to adopt the deficits for the supplemental assessment.
Okay. So with that, we're looking for that motion to approve the resolution for the supplemental assessment.
I think you have to open the hearing, Chair.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to open the hearing on the resolution for the assessment?
Motion, Joe.
Second, Harry.
Paul Clark. Mike Sika,
Yes.
Mike.
Hey, Bill, you
Capabianco.
can put Paul Clark down as yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, do. Mike Capabianco. Joe Zenga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Mike Julis,
Yes.
Jeanette Larson.
Yes.
Chair, as a follow-up, just to make everyone aware of the board, and I've discussed this with Leon Sokol with respects to the position that was presented by the MCUA. I'd like to advise the board members on today. We received correspondence from several other members with respects to the position as well. Mr. Sokol is reviewing that. We received letters from the attorneys for Monroe, North Brunswick, Pompton Lakes, Highland Park, Kearney, Millstone, and Seabright and Metuchen formally. So those will be made a part of the record.
Hey, Glenn, this is Paul Clark. Can I ask you to distribute those to all the members and any future letters, please?
Absolutely.
And Glenn, this is Leon Sokol. Those letters will be on file at the JIF and available for public inspection for anyone who wants to see them.
Okay, is there any comments?
Jeanette, this is Paul Clark. I'd just like to comment. Glenn and I spoke yesterday. As most of you know, the MCOA's requested background information with regard to our assessment. Glenn called yesterday, indicated that the batch of information we most recently requested, he was not able to put together in time for today's vote. We still want to get that, which I reiterated to Glenn, but I did want to point that out because I will be a no vote on this. And a lot of that has to do with waiting for this information because we're not comfortable voting yes until we get the information.
Okay,
Hi, this is Melissa Pearlstein from the Borough of Metuchen. And I know Metuchen no longer has a vote, but I am adamantly opposed to this resolution today. We have not been provided with the information. I cannot understand, and I'm speaking for my residents now, that they would be obligated to pay something on assessments that were 20 years ago. This is absolutely unconscionable to me. And there were supposed to be professionals. Yes, the Borough of Metuchen, who was ever sitting in my seat when they were a commissioner and part of the fund, had a fiduciary responsibility. But where were the auditors and where were the actuaries to rectify this issue that has been let go for 20 years? This is just unbelievable.
okay, thank you for your comment.
Good afternoon. This is Paula Cazarelli, Borough of Pompton Lakes. You know, I just came on board here a couple months ago, and you know, I'm going to echo what Melissa just said. You know, I don't know how anybody can sit and see a fund be in deficit year after year and still be a part of it. I don't know if that information was provided every year. I mean, you guys go through your financial standing every month. JIFs do that, and every month you should see some kind of a fund balance. I can't speak to that, but my question here is, the gentleman explained how those percentages were calculated, and he spoke very quickly. I'd like to know how the percentages were calculated based on, you know, what numbers were used. I think the members really need to have that information as to how those calculations were met in terms of percentages and how assessments were then derived based on that. That's what I want. I mean, the comments, obviously, you know, I've been a part of another fund. I understand things come up, that there are deficits that can happen, but to have a deficit this long and this large is irresponsible. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Glenn,
I
can you
apologize if I spoke too quickly there. The numbers came as a result of an audit that was performed as of 12/31/2020, and the actuarial analysis as of 12/31/2020. The JIF then was subsequently under review by the Department of Insurance and Banking, which also did a review, which then backed up, and well, they based upon their review and the numbers the Department of Insurance and Banking became comfortable with in order to support it. The numbers were then used to create the deficit analysis that is before the board. Those numbers are then backed into spreadsheets that are broken down by fund year, by member participant, by line of coverage, and then computed to create the contribution by fund member for that particular year.
So when I look at that spreadsheet sent, which I do not have in front of me, I'm going on memory. It says, for example, property, 16,000. And then it says, whatever percentage, 2%. So 2% of the 16,000 is what you're assessing me on as a deficit?
I don't have that particular fund year in front of me. I'd be more than happy to reach out.
I'm just throwing an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
based
this is
on your
not,
percentage, correct. It's based on your percentage contribution in that particular line of coverage.
So
Correct.
that's the contribution this borough made toward that particular line item. And
Correct.
and based on the calculations, you've assessed this borough at a 2% deficit in payment.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chairman, it's Ron Gordon. I was happy to hear the report that you have received the formal notices that I filed on behalf of my two clients, the Township of North Brunswick, the Township of Monroe. I just wanted to note again on the record that we have formally objected and opposed the proposed resolution that is before the committee today. North Brunswick hasn't been a member since 2011, and the supplementary assessment we believe is inappropriate with no claim still pending. Monroe hasn't been a member of the fund since 2018, and we also object to the proposed assessment. At your last meeting in the end of July, you said you would be meeting with the current members and the former members in an attempt to explain how you arrived at these things. To the best of my knowledge, that has not taken place. I believe that it would have been helpful if those meetings took place as promised. And in the absence of that, both of my municipal former clients object to the proposed action. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Fisher. I'm with the Borough of South Bound Brook, and I just wanted to comment and concur with the last three callers. And South Bound Brook objects to the approval of this resolution and the assessments. Thank you.
Through the chair, question.
Yes.
This is Michael Drulis. I'm sorry, the attorney's name who spoke for the two cities, the two towns. I think it's important that we find out from him if he has the information that Mr. Kurtz just described and discussed. I'm sorry if meetings didn't match up, but it is important that we can confirm that he does in fact have that information. So was that, through the chair, was that information sent?
I believe so. Glenn, what the information for the assessments and that those documents were sent to all of the
Yes, Chair, all the
former members?
The deficit resolution introduction as well as the backup sheets were forwarded to members, correct?
Well, that's great. And since COVID, I'm so glad that we all can meet in person again. But I'm glad that the attorney has that information. I think we all should set up and have these meetings.
And I apologize because I don't recall us saying that we were going to have a meeting with, so there must have been a point that I missed as well. I knew that the information was going to be sent. I didn't know that, I don't recall that bit of it, but. Do we have any other comments?
And Neil Morado.
Wait, one at a time.
Let him go first, yeah.
General, can you mute your phone? Okay, Mr. Murata?
Yes, hi Jeanette.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Okay, one also echoing the comments that have been made, but also I did have a question. There's a tax sheet of a deficit contribution to the resolution. Is that being considered today as the contribution from each member?
The,
Final, yes, the summary page has it broken down by member.
Okay,
Yes,
so that's the assessment you're looking to achieve from each member.
correct.
and that's
Okay.
as of this year, because you know that's a fluid number that will change every year.
Well, no, it goes for my entity, it goes back to 2015. Okay, so we were not a member in 2015 or 16. We didn't become a member in 2017.
I will have to take a look at that, Neil.
So for
I'd
that
be more
purpose
than happy
alone,
to
I
reach
think,
out to you after the meeting.
Glenn, I think you might be premature on this resolution today, based upon that fact alone.
Yeah.
So so obviously North Bergen objects, even though it doesn't have a vote at this time since we're out. But it does object to the resolution going forward, just on that ground alone. And we don't waive any other objections we have, obviously.
This is Anthony Cancro, Township Administrator for Plainsboro. We also want to go on record opposing the supplemental assessment. We took objection to this as far back as May of 21 and January of 22, and more recently on August 24th of 22. Glenn, you did not mention our town, Plainsboro, for sending in a written position on that. So please acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Glenn, before Mr. Cancro spoke, the gentleman that spoke, what town was he referring to?
North Bergen Parking Authority.
That was the gentleman before Anthony just spoke?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Thank you.
If I may, it's Richard Jenner from New Brunswick Board of Ed. May I speak?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to also formally object to this resolution on the basis that we've received the information in writing. We've asked for the rationale. Mr. Kurtz has given the rationale that he's given today. But that's not a sufficient rationale. We've asked based on how the percentages work. There's some inconsistencies in the number. For example, if the whole deficit is $1.7 million and everyone's a percentage of the deficit, how could some districts be in a positive for that year? So, I, in addition, formally request a meeting in order to have all this information detailed and specifically identified and answered for each one of us, because there's so many questions. Just sending out, oh, this is what the actuaries did. Well, how do I know? Do we have the resumes of the actuaries? Do we have all that information? So due to the lack of information, I also object to this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so I just have one comment specifically relating to North Bergen, because I don't know why this is the first time this is coming up. That would have been, if that was a concern, that would have been great a month ago even to know that might be a problem. Glenn, what can you, does that need further research now?
No, like you said, this is a fluid document that's going to be reviewed every year by the actuary and auditor. I will address it with the North Bergen Parking Authority and deal with it, and then we'll have to address it upon the review of the auditor and actuary.
Okay. All right.
Jeanette, my only concern is there might be other people or municipalities, entities that are on this list where there might not be a liability either. I think that based on all the comments here today, this has to be reviewed in much further detail.
Well, what I would just say is that, we all have a difference of opinion of a portion of liability, whether somebody thinks they have zero liability or not. I know that, as Glenn said, this is a fluid document that will change year over year based on the actuary. So, that's the only reason why I'm just, I was just concerned that as we're trying to do what we can to move the JIF forward, and I understand everyone else's positions that have spoken, but we need to move forward with this. And that was just my only question, is that, I know that there's other people in this meeting that have been contacting, Glenn, asking for information. And so that's all. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just at a loss here. Like, oh, that's just something that we didn't know about. So that's all.
Never a concern there. The other, just following up on what you stated, though, it's fluid. I don't understand, and I'm not an actuary, obviously. I went the law route. How could the numbers change, the prior numbers change? If we're talking about it being fluid in the future, how could these prior assessments change?
Because as those claims close out, that's how that's going to happen. So if the claims are still open and still subject to further liability, that, as they close out and they go away, then that's how the numbers change.
Okay, I'm just looking at.
Just to clarify, upon review, every fund year from 2001 to 2020 is currently open with open liability. We actually when we met with DOBI and DCA, I had said at the time 2002 was closed. We have since actually got a reopened claim going back to 2002. So all these fund years are open and fluid.
Okay, thank you. I still believe that based on a lack of meeting with all entities involved, or an attempt to do that, other than today, where there can be an information gathering, that you're still premature in moving this forward.
Okay. Unfortunately, we do need to move it forward because there are
Chair.
still members in the JIF. So yes.
This is Michael Drulis. I am just so pleased for the participation, the outreach that we received in preparation of today's meeting. This has been a topic that we've been discussing at meetings. We've been trying, and you hear Paul Clark talking about information he's trying to gather, and so I appreciate everyone's diligence on this matter. And I think as a JIF, we have an obligation to produce the information in very short order that folks are now discovering that they need or have asked for and not been satisfied with the results. And as the chair, I know you agree with me, we as commissioners take that obligation serious. This action today permits us to pursue those next steps. And so, if Mr. Murata's point stands as much as he says this information is new information to us, and well, it is, and to hold up any proceeding on information that we only received today is problematic, because I would like Mr. Kurtz's research on that. I would like to see Mr. Murata's research on that. It needs to stand the test of time and light. So I think we do need to move forward. I think we have a list of participants here that we as commissioners need to commit to providing them whatever information the JIF has, and provide it to them diligently, voluminously. You guys can have it all granularly. So, because I know the folks on this call have to answer to councils, boards of eds, their own committees, and we need to be partners in providing that information.
Thank you. I concur. Okay, was there any other comments before we close the hearing? Can I get a motion to close?
I just have one question. So the auditor and the actuary who are doing these calculations and provided this supplemental assessment, are they the same ones from prior years? Did we bring in an outside auditor for this? Since this is not something that happens normally, that you get 20 years of a prior assessment. Because I feel like voting on this today based upon that and using the same people, there's an issue. There was an issue that you had 20 years of prior assessments, but there's even a greater issue if you're using the same auditor and actuary to come up with the numbers that you're now giving to all of us.
Glenn, do you want to comment on that?
The 12/31/2020 audit was produced by the JIF's outside auditor, who the JIF has since replaced and is preparing the 2021 audit. And the actuary we are currently using has been on board only for the last 4 years. So we have made changes in that regard.
Glenn, in addition to the statutory audit, however, which had the same firm, Samuel Klein, the JIF did undergo a special audit that was, ordered by Department of Banking and Insurance by another agency. It wasn't a full statutory audit, but it was a review of claims, receivables, et cetera, and they did make changes to the statutory audit balances, and that required us to reissue the statutory audit for 12/31/20. So to the young lady's question, there have been basically two auditors, and we've changed actuaries at least once over the course of the time frame that is in question.
Glenn, just to know, wasn't there a prior auditor in the 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s also? It wasn't Samuel Klein back then.
No, you're correct, Joe. We had switched to Samuel Klein, and then as Joe stated, the state came in and did their own review. So.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe Mon. So that's what the piece that I was hoping that Glenn would address.
And were the audits done in a timely fashion on a yearly basis?
We had an audit every single year as required by law. I know that the last couple of years was tough, but to my knowledge, they were, but I'll leave that to Glenn to answer. I haven't been around that long.
We're a little late sometimes.
I think they were, Glenn, they were very late, weren't they, most years?
The last couple of years, yes, and which also led to his replacement.
Like, yeah, the last 4 or 5 years, maybe more.
Yes.
Like embarrassingly late, right?
Yes.
Any other comments before we close public, before we close the hearing? Can I get a motion to close the hearing?
Motion, Joe.
Second, Harry.
Paul Clark,
Yes.
Mike Sika.
Yes.
Did I hear Mr. Capabianco come in?
I have not seen him come in.
Okay. Joe Zenga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Mike Julis,
Yes.
Jeanette Larison.
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to looking for a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Do I have a motion for the special assessment?
Motion, Joe.
I'll second.
Second was who?
Harry.
Second, Harry.
Paul Clark,
No.
Mike Sika,
Yes.
Joe Zenga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Mike Julis,
Yes.
Jeanette Larson,
Yes. Okay. Moving on to new business.
Yes, Chair, in the packets were two recent articles we received from the Mel, one addressing the increased cost for insurance for municipalities in the public sector, as well as a Mel article addressing cyber liability moving forward. These are two articles dealing with the ever-increasing cost of insurance public entities are facing, as well as the potential future liability with respects to the cyber area. I don't believe Mr. Cooney is on the line, who is the underwriter for the Mel, but he has been working diligently with the Mel team to address the cyber renewals members are going to be facing next year. But I thought I would circulate these two articles, which I believe will appear in the League of Municipalities program for 2022. And in that regard, and I don't know if Dave, you want to chime in on the two articles or? Okay.
Okay. You have the renewal listed there?
Yes, Chair. Also circulated to the membership was a letter received from the Mel with respects to the 2022 renewal of the JIF. I circulated the Mel and their concerns. The JIF is on board or on schedule for the Mel's meeting in September. The renewal letter was from Mr. Samaru to Mr. Sokol. I don't know if Leon wants to address that before he addresses the JIF's response or not.
Madam Chairman, I think it's best that we finish the consultation with how the commissioners want to respond, and we will then prepare a formal response to the Mel based upon what the commissioners deem appropriate with regard to the response.
Okay.
So Leon, you're saying you'd like our response to be discussed in closed session, am I correct?
Yes, I think that that's appropriate to be done then, and then we can, when we come out of closed session in public session, we can publicly address what the response will be.
Okay. On to audience comments.
Hello, Charlie Cradaville. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I'm here today in my capacity as the editor of New Brunswick Today, a community newspaper available online at newbrunswicktoday.com, and also a concerned citizen and resident of New Brunswick. I wanted to read just a small portion of this letter dated August 18th from the Mel JIF. Item 3 is very concerning. It says, management, the JIF continues to operate in violation of numerous regulations and has failed to implement many basic controls required for the commissioners to properly direct the JIF's performance. The Middlesex JIF must provide a plan to reorganize its management to correct the numerous administrative and regulatory issues that remain unsatisfactory even after a full year of regulatory supervision. I think the public deserves the JIF's response to this today, and I want to make sure that we're going to get that, if not now, after the closed session. Will you be responding to those concerns?
Leon, did you want to address that or?
Yeah, I think that yeah, what we intend to do is respond appropriately to the letter, and you accurately read the letter from the mail, and our response will be appropriate in responding to it.
Will that response be made public today?
It'll become clearer when we come back into open session based upon what the commissioners have decided their response should be.
Well, then let me say that the public deserves a full response immediately to these very serious allegations from what appears to be a very reputable source. And I don't think anything less is acceptable. I think that today on this call, the JIF should respond to the allegations of numerous regulations being violated. And it appears that your membership in the MEL is at stake here. So this is something that can't wait. So I hope that if I stick around, I'll get some type of response on this call today. I also just wanted to ask, how did a $27 million deficit accrue over this period of time? Who messed up, and what happened to the $27 million?
The deficit accrued with respects to changes with respects to the budget and addressing the excess claims, as well as funding for the excess claims, as well as meeting the budgetary needs with respects to the municipalities, Charlie. It's something we have looked at and will correct moving forward. And it's something that this JIF board currently is taking very seriously.
I'll
Glad
take
it's being taken seriously now. Go ahead, Mr. Hurt. Sorry.
I will take the blame for that, Charlie, because I was the administrator, and I was not a big favor of incurred but not reported. If you look at the statute, all claims against municipalities must be reported within 90 days unless you are incompetent or a minor. And that's what I've been going by, the way I've been treating the IBNR. And since that time, I found out with David, and he agrees that they're increasing claims reserve as well. So I'll take the hit.
Thank you. So just to be clear, there were, I guess, millions of dollars in claims that were just not being properly accounted for over the years. That's fair to say?
No, that's not fair to say. It's a liability for potential outstanding claims. So that wouldn't be a fair assessment.
Okay, thank you for the correction. So not claims per se, but liability for potential claims.
Right, yes.
Correct, Charlie. The latest actuarial report has a IBNR figure, which I believe I stated earlier, of $21,376,000. Those are claims that the JIF has to reserve for claims that the actuary is projecting. And we have to put that in our financial statements. So
got it.
Of
So
the
I just want to be clear.
$27 million deficit, 22 million of it is a reserve for IBNR.
Thank you. I appreciate that info. So just to be clear, the first time that the JIF became aware of this was when the 2020 audit came back, I guess about a year ago. Is that
Well,
fair to say?
we have been attempting to correct it, and when we explored membership in the MEL with the assistance of the MEL and the Department of Insurance, we immediately took action to correct it.
Just to be clear, that was about a year ago now, right?
Correct. It was early last year, Charlie.
And I just want to understand, there's already been a special assessment for, I guess, last year. That's correct? There's already been one special assessment. Today's special assessment covers the 2 decades prior.
Exactly.
The special assessment that was done earlier in the year was a correction to the 2022 budget or 2021 budget.
21.
So
Got it. And what was the total amount that had to be assessed on that?
Charlie, I would recommend that you gather your questions and forward them on to Glenn to answer, because this probably isn't the best venue to ask those detailed questions.
I agree.
I'll certainly,
but
I'll
since he
certainly
asked, it was
follow up.
since he asked, it was $2,097,000.
Thanks, Joe.
A little over 2 million. Thank you. Yeah, and that is the bulk of my questions for Mr. Kurtz, but I do want to speak a little bit about New Brunswick. I'm shocked but not surprised to see New Brunswick the #1 highest assessment here at $4.86 million, by far the highest contributor to the deficit. And this might be the first time in a while that I'm in agreement with Mr. Janarone in on an issue here. I'm very opposed to this resolution that was passed here, and I'm perplexed as to why New Brunswick seems to support taking this nearly $5 million hit. I'll note the Board of Ed representative, Mr. Janarone, opposed it, and the Board of Ed's on the hook for $735,000. Our parking authority's on the hook for $860,000. The parking authority and the city of New Brunswick both voted yes for this. So I would like to hear through you, Madam Chair, for Mr. Droulis, why is it something that New Brunswick supports to take this huge hit?
Again, Charlie, this isn't really a question and answer period, so you could ask the questions, but I'm not sure that, they're going to be answered at this time.
Well, certainly everyone's right to answer or not answer the question, but I am putting it on the record here. I'd like to know why New Brunswick supports taking a budgetary hit of $4.86 million to the taxpayers.
Madam Chairwoman, certainly Mr. Kravisville is entitled to conduct an interview, but it shouldn't be done within the context of a Q&A at the meeting. So I suggest that you make an appointment with the people that you want to interview and gather whatever information you think is appropriate for your reporting.
Okay. Will Mr. Droulis grant an interview?
That's between you. That's between you and Mr. Droulis, but I don't think the rest of us should. The rest of our time and the other people participating in this meeting should be involved in that discussion.
Okay. Well, to be fair, the JIF has answered a number of questions that I've asked so far in this call and other calls, and Mr. Droulis is my representative on this board, and I'd like to understand why he voted yes for this. It's up to him whether he wants to answer, whether he wants to answer offline. I will follow up to try to secure that interview, but I'll just give one more chance for him to speak on the record right now if he can tell us why he supports this.
Yeah, Charlie, I don't think it's appropriate for you to be challenging members of the commission at a public meeting. If you have an issue with Mr. Droulis or anybody else, take that up on your own time separately. But I think that this conversation should be ended and we go on with our business.
Okay. Well, if I can respectfully respond, I respectfully disagree. I think public meetings are the place where citizens should be able to challenge their representatives and ask them questions and get answers. In an ideal world, we would have those answers today. But again, it's his right to choose not to respond to the questions. I will just close by saying that this is a very serious concern of the taxpayers of New Brunswick. that New Brunswick is going to take the biggest hit out of all of the JIF's current and former members. And I know Mr. Drulis talked about meetings that are happening. And for the record, he attends every city council meeting. I attend every city council meeting in New Brunswick. And I'm the only one who's raised this issue at the city council meeting. And the response was a response that glossed over this issue. So I'm disappointed that whatever discussions have happened have been behind closed doors and have not been before the public. So I hope that at the next city council meeting, Mr. Drulis will brief the council and the public on this $4.86 million hit that he just approved to the taxpayers in New Brunswick. And I hope that we'll get the answers we all deserve. And I guess that wraps it up for me today. And I thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Yeah. Lorraine, Neil Murata again. Jeanette.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to echo a little bit where Charlie was saying, this is the venue for this to take place. We have a situation here where it shows that there was possible non-feasance going back to 2001, where if this information had been provided all along, these entities either may not have joined this JIF or the JIF would have taken corrective action. So this is the place for this to take place, okay? At least to have any concerns that are presented. Obviously, we're all government entities, so the panel is not required to answer these questions at this time. However, it's definitely a place for it to occur. So any attempts to limit that conversation or those questions, I would think is a little bit inappropriate. So I think it's important that it move forward. I also, there's also talked about other meetings that took place, and I did see a letter from the Middlesex County Utilities Authority that addressed meetings that had occurred, however, was notice given to prior or current members. We know nothing of these meetings that took place. So I am curious what meetings we're talking about here. If you could, provide that information, I would appreciate it.
All the meetings we had were noticed. We had our general monthly meetings where many discussions took place. Even after other former entities were notified. And I know that there are, to be frank, I know that there are a handful of entities on this call right now that knew because I had gotten a couple of phone calls about it, stemming back from a while ago. So I would say at that point that the meetings are noticed and that anyone could have attended at that time.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I did not mean that the official meetings, the open to the public meetings, that there were meetings with either DOBI, the DCA, where that information was not provided to the general membership as far as I can see. And this is an information gathering system right now. That's where this should have taken place as well. So if there's anything going further in that regard, I would think it should be provided to the complete list of members.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Looking for approval of the bill list for August 30th. I have a motion.
So move. So move.
Paul Clark.
Yes.
We only have we need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I could.
Second.
Paul Clark,
Yes.
Mike Sika,
Yes.
Joe Zenga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Michael Drulis,
Yes.
Jeanette Larson.
Yes.
I believe Mike Capianco entered the meeting.
Okay, Mike Capianco.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Mike, I didn't see you come in.
Okay, next we'll need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll move it.
Second, Joe.
Paul Clark,
Yes.
Mike Sika,
Yes.
Mike Capianico,
Yes.
Joe Zenga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Uncle Julius,
Yes.
Jeanette Larson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me create a breakout on your
All
chair.
right.
Start, still breaking out.
No, Charlie. I'm sorry. Have you moved over? Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on mute. Or, guys, I keep getting bounced back from room to room here.
I'm sorry, Harry.
This
What do
is-
you want?
Just make sure I am where I need to be.
Glenn, so you know, this is James Silate, so you know, I left the breakout room. For some reason, I was invited.
Okay,
Glenn, this is Leon. Can you hear me?
yes.
Well, I'm back where you had the main screen of the agenda. I'm not in the breakout room.
I'm
The
in
screen,
the main.
the screen I was on had all the names of the people who left.
Leon, I'm in the same screen right here.
Leon, move. Harry,
I'm here.
move.
Okay.
To room 1, right?
Yeah, you should be on one, right?
I'm going now. Before I was with them.
Recording stopped.
Where? Yeah. Are we waiting for something?
Recording in progress.
Should be over now. Okay, Chair, I believe that's everybody.
Okay, so I guess the first order of business would just to get a motion to approve the. So that's easiest. Can I get a motion to approve the claim?
Motion.
I'll second Joe.
Joe can have it.
That was Mike Sika. Paul Clark,
Yes.
No, yeah,
Mike Sika,
Yes.
Mike Capianco,
Yes.
Joe Zanga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado,
Yes.
Mike Jules dropped off, correct?
Yes.
Jeanette Larison.
yes. Okay, and then I guess I'll turn it over to Leon.
Yes, yeah, Madam Chairwoman, as was indicated in the open session before we went into closed session, a letter was received from the Municipal Excess Liability Joint Insurance Fund, which shorthand is the MEL. Excuse me. Dated August 18th, it was sent by their counsel to me as counsel to the JIF. And it specified 8 points under which the MEL would consider renewal of the excess liability insurance issue to the JIF when renewal takes place as of January 1st, 2023. In general, the commissioners have agreed to all of the 8 points requested by the MEL, and with some explanation so that the record record is fairly clear. Number one deals with the MEL. Number one deals with a commitment from the Department of Insurance and DCA to support the collection efforts on the special assessment that was approved earlier in the meeting. Preliminary discussions with the Department of Insurance indicate that they will be supportive. The DCA indicated that they were inclined to support, but they were not willing to commit until they had the advice of counsel, which we're awaiting. So that is the status of that request. Additionally, in point number one, counsel to the MEL indicated that there were members that would be challenging the assessment in court. Thus far, there have been no legal challenges to the assessment, but we have received letters, as was discussed earlier in the meeting, from attorneys for several of the former members indicating that they did not agree with the assessment, but stopped short of notifying us that legal action would be taken. As to number two, that it will retain sufficient, that the JIF will be confident that it will retain sufficient membership. A survey of the current members indicates that New Brunswick, Milltown, Carteret, South River, New Brunswick Parking Authority, and Millstone intend to remain in the JIF. The MCUA is contractually committed to remain until December 31, 2023. And that will, based upon recent communications, that is a subject of continued discussion. Number 3 deals with reorganization, a reorganization plan for the JIF management going forward. Based upon conversations we have had with Mel representatives, we're proposing a working committee comprised of Glenn Kurtz and myself representing the JIF, plus additional commissioners to be designated by the chairwoman. Fred Summerall, the counsel to the Mel, David Grubb, the executive director, Chuck Kuchia, who is a commissioner of the Mel, and Robert Landolfi, who will serve as a consultant to the working group. That is open to obviously that's our recommendation, and certainly open to additions, revisions, corrections from the Mel when we talk to them. We're in agreement with number 4, that we agree that the self-insured claims retention required by the Mel will be adopted for the 2023 budget and each year thereafter. We're in agreement with number 5, that the JIF will adopt the fast track monitoring reports required by the Mel. We're in agreement with number 6, that the JIF agrees to have the Mel claims auditor review the Middlesex JIF claims at the expense of the JIF. We're in agreement with number 7, that the JIF agrees to utilize the Mel Safety Institute, and its safety director will begin implementing the Mel safety programs immediately. And we're in agreement in general with number 8, that will address the related administrative costs regarding the collection of the stranded costs, and as the special assessment is collected. And the details of that are to be worked out with the working group and the Mel at the time. So in general, we are in agreement with all of the 8 points, subject to clarification and negotiation, but this will be prepared in a letter from me to Mr. Summerall as attorney for the Mel, and as requested by the Mel, it'll be sent to them prior to September 2nd, so that it will be available for the Mel Commissioner meeting on September 7th, 2022. Any questions?
Just one comment, Leon, we're prepared to work very closely with you and the committee, and hope to be able to wrap these things up as quickly as possible so that we're on the right track.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, then I see the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Michael,
Second, Joe.
Paul Clark,
Yes.
Mike Sika,
Yes.
Mike Capianco,
Yes.
Joe Zanga,
Yes.
Harry Delgado. Harry, jump up.
No, he's there.
Well, Harry, no, Harry is muted. Harry, you're muted. If you can hear me, Harry, because you're on.
Wow, it's only an adjournment, so I think we can skip over.
Harry, do you want to stay when everybody leaves?
And Jeanette.
Yes.
All right. Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.